homelessness. Got it. Our theme today is homelessness and housing insecurity. And the local jurisdictions, cities and counties, every year, absent a pandemic, conduct a point of count where they go out and they talk to the individuals, the unsheltered individuals, to do a count. And then they produce a report. So the count has been happened earlier this year. The report is now out, and I requested from the city, who is our local partner on that, a presentation on that report. And then also the other topic will be, in the past, we've heard the school district talk about that they have identified students in their system in the K-8 that they know have housing insecurity. They're either homeless or they have unstable housing situations. And I know offline, I was nudging them, how can we help? What are we doing to address that? It was about 100 students. And it appears that the city and the school district have been working together to address that need. And then also we have Dr. Foster from Positas College is joining us this morning to talk about the pent-up demand for student housing. So these are three very important topics. I know the business community is keenly attuned to making sure that, part of having a healthy, strong economy is making sure our people have shelter and that they have food and there's some stability in their the basics of quality of life. So how can we help? The numbers overall in general compared to other jurisdictions, as you'll hear from the city, are not huge. And in fact, they're going down. And my response is it zero? No, it's not. So we want to hear about it. We want the information so we can be educated and so that each of us, our businesses and this organization can support the city, the county, and other organizations that are trying to meet the need and the demand for this. And this is separate from all of our, supporting housing, affordable housing, housing for every income level. But this is very basic. So with that, I want to introduce our first featured speaker, who's Josh Thurman. He is the Human Services Programs Manager for the City of Livermore. And then he has his partner, I think, that he'll introduce later. So we'll get rolling with that. Thank you, Josh.
Good morning, Dawn. Thank you for the introduction. Just one slight change. Grace was going to join me for the Family Homelessness Challenge Grant piece. However, her flight got delayed, and so she's currently over, I don't know, Ohio or somewhere right now on an airplane. So, but we do have Jenny Peterson from the school district who has been a part of the project from day one and has played a crucial role. So I'll go through some of the slides and then she can help fill in anything that I missed or answer any questions. So let me share my screen. Oops, sorry. Might want to start at the beginning, huh? So today, Dawn asked me to present the most recent homeless point in time count update that happened on February 23rd of this year. Normally it's every 2 years, but the pandemic kind of got in the way of that. So we had to delay it by about a year, but we were able to do it. So what is the point in time count? As Dawn mentioned, that every 2 years, HUD requires each county across the United States to count homeless folks in their community. It's quite an undertaking, which you'll kind of see a little bit in future slides, but that's kind of the gist of it. It's a requirement that we'd have to do it every 2 years. And why is it important? It informs program, policy, funding, and system design decisions. It also helps us measure the progress of either decreasing or increasing homelessness in communities. It also brings public awareness, and it helps us advocate for additional resources in our efforts to get down to that zero number. So this is kind of a map of the entire county. I wanted to show this because a count of this size and for a county of this size is really a huge undertaking. And this one was really successful because, as you can see, it's 99% of the teams and volunteers that signed up actually participated. In past years, the day of attrition was close to 20%. And so people would be struggling to find other volunteers to go out and count. And so essentially what this means is there's 600 volunteers signed up throughout the county. There's 360 census tracts throughout the county that need to be counted. So that's, just kind of wrap your mind around that for a second. That's a lot of precincts to be walking and counting. Here in the Tri-Valley, we had 65 volunteers from the community, from local nonprofits, our police departments, city staff, and we were tasked with counting 42 census tracts throughout essentially the Tri-Valley. So it was Livermore, Dublin, and Pleasanton. And we also had 6 formerly homeless individuals that volunteered, and they were actually paid by the consulting firm to help us navigate through some of the areas that we may not be familiar with where homeless individuals are living. So we were able to really kind of really get into some of the places that we didn't know existed. And that helped us in the future because now we know where folks are and we can better assist them. So the pit count accuracy, I see Mayor Marchand on here. This is one of the things that he really was instrumental in helping with, to be honest, because I think in previous years, we felt that the count was not necessarily the most accurate in the Tri-Valley. And so really what the county and everyone home did was kind of put more of the responsibility on the local jurisdictions. So it just kind of started to stop. One of the new things was a new phone app in geo-tracking. So each volunteer that was assigned to a precinct or multiple precincts got that map on their phone. And so they could follow where they needed to go on their phone. And then they actually logged in anybody that they saw that was homeless from their phone rather than like a paper tally sheet. So it went directly into the system immediately as they put it in. And they were also able to put in additional data too. As I mentioned, the reliance on regional and jurisdictional outreach teams. So each region had a regional coordinator, and I was the regional coordinator for the Tri-Valley. So what that meant was I was responsible for securing the volunteers, assigning them to their census tracts, assisting them in any way that I could, throughout the process, and then the day of. But what we were able to do, and I think this is important to note, and I think people appreciate this, especially if they participated in previous counts, was we were able to keep people local. Whereas previously, I think we had folks who worked for the city, our local providers that were off in East Oakland somewhere or Hayward counting. And that's one of the things that we wanted to change. And I think Mayor Marchand was really instrumental in helping with, is kind of really driving home that ability to keep volunteers in the community that they know. And it really helped the accuracy of the count. And so I didn't have to send anybody from the Tri-Valley out of the area. In fact, if they lived in Livermore, I did my best to keep them in Livermore, and the furthest they would go was Dublin. And I think people are pretty mobile in the Tri-Valley and pretty familiar with all 3 cities for the most part. So it worked out really well. The other thing is there was an expanded family survey to improve the methodology, which resulted in more families being counted. That was really a partnership between our shelters, the school district, and other folks to really do a good job of counting getting the family surveys, which helped us improve our data collection. This is an interesting one, and I don't pretend to know the math and the science behind this, but the consulting company uses a multiplier for tents. So what we don't want to do on the morning of is if we see a tent with what we believe to be homeless folks inside, we don't want to unzip the tent and say, hey, good morning, it's 4 a.m., wake up. And so there was a methodology used to essentially guess kind of how many people were in the tents. And it's a methodology they use all over the state of California. And so it's not anything too new, but there had been some grumblings from other cities in the county, especially Berkeley, who thought this multiplier maybe added to the number of homeless folks that were supposedly counted. I don't believe it impacted our local data at all, but some of the bigger cities complained about this a little bit. So here's kind of a snapshot of where we are with the countywide. In 2019, you'll see there was a total of 8,022 homeless folks throughout the county. And in 2022, you see there's 9,747, which was really about a 22% increase of homelessness throughout Alameda County. And I'll get to a slide later where it kind of breaks down city by city that is really interesting. And then locally, this one's a little hard to see. I had a hard time transferring it over to PowerPoint, but I can always send out the stuff to Dawn and she can get it to you guys if you're interested in. So this is kind of our local infographic. So as you see in 2017, kind of starting the upper left-hand corner, in 2017, the count was 243 homeless, sheltered and unsheltered individuals. And then in 2019, it was 264. And then in 2022, we dropped it down by 22 to 242 people. And then kind of moving over to the right, there's some of the county-wide data that gets you to that 9,747. You can kind of see that the drastic increase from 2017 to almost doubling, really. And so there's been quite an increase countywide. We, I think I can get into this a little bit more later, but I think we did a pretty good job during the pandemic. I mean, one of the things the pandemic did bring was additional resources. So we were able to get a lot of these folks into housing. I attribute a lot of it to the Safer Ground Hotel that was stood up in Livermore, the hotel over by the outlets. I don't ever think it even opened to the public. And we were able to, through the county, secure that hotel and place folks in there. That served about 80 people, 80 Livermore homeless residents. And everybody who left that hotel had an opportunity for a housing voucher, permanent housing voucher. And so it wasn't, we really didn't just close the hotel and kick people out on the street. It was a year-long process of getting people housing ready, getting their documents prepared, and trying to find them housing. We sent out letters to every landlord that we could find in the Tri-Valley, asking them to help, participate in the voucher programs. And I don't know if it helped or not, but we were able to get those 80 folks into housing kind of scattered throughout the county. And then the school or the housing authority had an additional 25 vouchers that were dedicated to homelessness as well. And so, that's a little over 100 folks that we were able to house during the pandemic. So I bring that up because I think there were some of us who were hoping that number, the 242, it was less than that because of all the hard work that was put in by our nonprofits and the county and the city. However, I look at it as if we didn't house those 80 people out of Safer Ground and the additional 25, our numbers could look a lot worse than they do. So, it's, while we wanted to go down, I think if we didn't have those opportunities, our numbers would be at least 100 higher. Okay. So as you can kind of just going down to the bottom of this chart here, you can see some of the details of where the unsheltered population are by location. And, we have the tents. So there's 38 folks were in tents of 22%. And then this one is something that we struggle with, is the car and vans. We've seen an increase in fact, across the county, there's been an increase in the number of people living in their cars or vans. And then their RVs, and then just street or outside is roughly 30%, and then 1% in abandoned building. So that's kind of a snapshot of where our folks are by location. this kind of gets a little bit deeper into it about some of the demographics. The pie charts you see in the middle of your screen, those are based on sheltered data. So if you look at the gender identity, you'll see that 73% of folks or homeless people that are sheltered in Tri-Valley are female, and that's largely because most of our shelters are geared towards women and children in the Tri-Valley. The single adult, the single male adults are really challenging to find places, shelter for just throughout the county. It's something we focused so much on women and children, which is great, but we kind of left out the single male adult. And so we've been trying to figure that out as well. Then you kind of see the age breakdown. It's mostly 18 and over, 25 plus. So let me move on. So this one, I'll kind of just let you guys look at this for a moment because there's a lot going on here. You can kind of see city by city, who had major increases, who had major decreases, and who kind of stayed the same. And then at the bottom of the screen is the East County region. So you can kind of see how we did compared to the other two cities in the region. I will say you'll see that Dublin has a 263% increase. I'll just say they don't believe that the data is here is quite accurate. They may be one of those cities that was impacted by the multiplier in some way. Not entirely sure, but I know that the mayor has brought this up several times regarding her city. So essentially, we were down 8%, which is a good thing. You'll see some of these cities, Fremont really exploded at 69% change, then Piedmont 100% change, but I don't think they had anybody counted in 2017 or 2019. So kind of let me know when you want me to move on from this slide. There's a lot to look at. It's kind of interesting here to kind of see where people are. And I think there's a correlation too between where some of the safer ground hotels were stood up and the decrease. So Livermore, we had a decrease. And then Hayward, I believe, had a hotel. And then Emeryville definitely had a hotel as well. And they had a 49% decrease. So I think that played some of the role in decreasing the numbers. So kind of next steps. So kind of where we're going. We have a grant which is called the Homeless Housing Assistance and Prevention Grant, also known as HAP. This is going to be a 4-part grant. We will receive rounds 1 and 2, hopefully from the county by the 1st of this year. Then I'll be able to bring it to council and then start getting some of those resources out the door. So the grant is really to serve people experiencing literal homelessness, move into safe, stable housing. This particular grant is really focused on the housing piece and navigation centers. And there's also a focus on regional coordination. And I think we've come to the conclusion there's a lot of finger pointing over the years of whose responsibility it is. It's the counties, it's cities, and I think we've all come to the conclusion that we can't quite do this by ourselves. So maybe we should play nice and get along, and we did that. The county developed, which Mayor Warner was a huge part of. They developed the Home Together plan, which is a plan that kind of lays out a framework for ending homelessness, and it's a real plan. It's got numbers attached to it, what it would take to solve the problem. It's got large dollar amounts attached to it, and the important piece of that is that every city in the county adopted the plan and basically said, we support this, we're on board, and we're all in it together. And on the city side, it was an acknowledgement of, okay, we need to help out a little bit too and provide local resources, which just about every city in this county is already doing. So it wasn't anything new, but it kind of really it joined us together. We're more unified, I think, than we ever have been around homelessness, which is a good thing. As I mentioned, it's a four-part grant. Not entirely sure when rounds 3 and 4 will be released, but so we'll have resources coming in. This is kind of all that money that we hear about flowing from the state down to the county and into the cities, and kind of there's a record amount of money, in the budget, last couple of budgets for homelessness. So that's kind of it on the homeless county. I know I kind of threw a lot at you. We've got a busy morning, so try to get through it a little bit. So if you have any questions, please let me know.
Josh, there were some questions in the chat. I don't know if you saw those. I have a question for you. With all of these programs and everyone, come home together and all these different things, do they include the actual participants themselves? Sometimes I think we all design all these plans, but we don't include the target population. And so then we kind of make a, you need to include them to get the buy-in and the engagement.
Absolutely. And just about everything we do, I just noticed on my screen, I have the sun coming through my window right here. So, yes, absolutely. It's a big piece of it. In fact, most processes require participation from formerly unhoused folks or people who are currently unhoused. And so, yeah, they play an interesting role because it's really easy for us to sit back and tell people what we think works, but it's really important to have people who actually have experienced it tell us what works and what does not work. And so, yes, they play a huge role in the plans and grants that we do.
Okay, great. We have some questions. Carolyn, I see your hand up.
All right, thank you, Josh, for that great presentation. A quick question. So the HAP grants, do you see those going to places like Vineyard 2.0?
So yes, rounds 3 and 4, my plan is to dedicate all of Livermore's resources as far as HAP funds go to support Vineyard 2.0. Essentially what, Vineyard 2.0 is, I really look at it as a navigation center with permanent housing, and it's a perfect fit for that funding. The only reason we did not do rounds 1 and 2 is just the timing didn't work out. It's not going to be up and running for another year or so. And so that's why rounds 3 and 4 will, at least that's my plan, is to dedicate that funding to support Vineyard.
And then just a quick question about, you said that the 6 formerly homeless people helped in the count. Was that 6 in the Tri-Valley or 6 within the county?
6 in the Tri-Valley.
Okay.
We were able to identify them through CityServe and the Tri-Valley Haven, and I literally paid them in cash the day of. That was part of the deal. It was, I'm not going to send you a check or you've got to wait 6 weeks. After the count was over, I drove to wherever they were and gave them cash. So it worked out really well. They were extremely helpful.
Right. Mayor Warner, your hand is up.
Oh, I just wanted to thank Josh for all the hard work. I've been working with him for a couple of years with the Alameda Mayors Conference and the ad hoc group on homelessness that John started a while ago with him. And we've made a lot of progress. I just wanted to say a lot of credit goes to Josh.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you for that. Okay, so we need to move on. We still have 2 more speakers.
Wait, hang on a sec. I got my hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry. Your hand blends in with your background, John. Go ahead.
I know I've got to change the color of it, but yeah. So again, I'd like to thank Josh for taking on the job of regional coordinator. That is absolutely huge. You notice that the numbers were quite low in 2017. This is something that I beat the table on for a couple of years because, as Josh pointed out, there were times when people from Livermore and the Tri-Valley were sent into Oakland, and then the people from Oakland that were sent into Livermore everyone home didn't have maps for Livermore, and they didn't have coordinators. They didn't have, so a lot of the people that were experiencing homelessness were not counted because they didn't, the people that were doing the counting didn't know where to look. So the fact that Josh was the regional coordinator is absolutely huge. We got better numbers in 2019. And the fact that we were really, really well focused this time and the numbers went down, I think that is real. And the tremendous effort that Josh put in with the housing vouchers, getting people that knew this community to count, that was huge. And I think these numbers are quite accurate. And the fact that our numbers actually dropped, that was real. And it highlights the tremendous effort that Mayor Werner and Josh Thurman put in on this effort. So my thanks to the great work that all of you have done. Thanks.
Josh, can you do me a favor? Can you put your contact information in the chat? And then if you have any additional questions, you can send Josh an email. So.
And Sharon, I know we're running behind because I nudged you, but I do have a question comment and to Josh. Oh, and by the way, thank you to the city of Livermore for stepping up and having, one of your staffers take the lead in the Tri-Valley region. Again, Livermore leads. And that is the comment that I hear from folks that is very tiresome and not particularly helpful. And that is that the Tri-Valley cities and communities drop their homeless individuals off in Livermore to be taken care of. How much truth is in that?
I talked to so we have 2 homeless liaison officers in the city of Livermore, and that's all they do every day. They go out and make contact with our homeless folks, and they're really, of course, they do enforce the law when they need to, but they're really, they're almost like social workers. They're incredible people. I have asked them this question quite a few times. It pops up every once in a while, and they don't believe that's necessarily true. We definitely see people pass through the area quite often, and we are pretty good about saying, hey, where are you trying to go? What are you trying to do? And we actually help them get to where they want to go. We had somebody recently was trying to get to Manteca to family, and so we helped them get to family. I think, we do get some people that end up, at the end of the BART line and kind of make their way east a little bit. I I worry as we start to kind of get into some of our more programming pieces, whether it's a substance use disorder facility or something like that. I think the worry is that, it might be a dumping ground for other police departments and things like that. And I don't see it. I know I hear stories. I heard somebody said that the sheriff was dumping people, bus fulls of people or something, and I haven't seen that happen. But of course, we do get people from out of the area. But I think it's about 75% of the people that we see are homeless in the Tri-Valley are from the Tri-Valley, and they have been for 5+ years. And I don't know if either Mayor Warner or John wants to respond to that, because I know they hear things as well.
I think it's just a urban legend. I don't think we've got any proof of it, of the other city officials dropping them here. I think that it's the kind of thing that plays well in political campaigns and stuff. It's and it's actually not helpful, because we're trying to solve this problem regionally, and that kind of thing just pits one group against another. And we've got enough of that today. So frankly, I think it's not helpful to spread that kind of thought.
Okay, great. Thank you, Dawn, for that final question. Okay, so now we're going to move on. We need to hear from Jenny Peterson, right? And then we have Dr. Foster after that. So take it away.
So I think this one will be me as well, and then Jenny will.
Okay, great.
So this one I'm a little less. Whoops, where's how come I cannot? Oh, there it is. My cursor is not working. Okay, can everybody see that? No,
Not yet. I think we
Not
need
yet.
to share or a new share. There you go. Yeah, there you go.
okay. So this is a good one. This is something that I think we are all very proud of, and I wish I could take some credit for it, but I can't. This was over on the housing side of the Housing and Human Services shop. Grace, she was instrumental working with the school district and the housing authority to make this happen. So we're looking at we call a Family Homelessness Challenge grant, and it's so some of the background is that the housing authority and school district really want to rehouse students experiencing homelessness. So last year, the housing authority reached out to the city about an opportunity to set aside some units on their public housing site, which is Leahy Square, which you see here, and specifically for households experiencing homelessness. Leahy Square is a multilingual and multi-generational community that is located next to the Livermore High School. It has 125 apartments ranging in size from 1 to 5 bedrooms. As the housing authority and city started identifying potential funding sources and designing the program, we reached out to the school district and local providers like CityServe, who shared the need for programs specifically for families in the school district experiencing homelessness. And that's where Jenny and her team came in to kind of help us identify those homeless students in the district. So the funded activities it's dedicating 12 units at Leahy Square for unhoused families. It provides intensive case management services to help people stay stabilized in a permanent housing situation. It allows participants to stay a longer period of a time than a traditional transitional housing programs normally allow folks to stay. And then kind of this was exciting because we were only 1 out of 10 jurisdictions throughout the state of California to receive this grant, and I believe that the dollar amount was about $581,000. And I think it really, the reason why we got it was that strong partnership between the city, the school district, and the housing authority. And so that really helped us. So now the next steps, and I know Jenny and Grace and her team are working on some of the next steps. There's a referral process and program design. So what does it look like when we get folks into the housing units? What kind of support do they need? Then identify a case management provider, and then deepening residence services at Leahy Square. And so we'll look to take those next steps here shortly. And that's kind of it. It's kind of still in the planning processes, but it's really exciting that we were able to get that grant and just be 1 of 10 throughout the state to do so. And then working with the school district, I think all of our eyes got really wide open. We learned how many homeless kids we have in our school district. It's really heartbreaking, actually. And so we want to partner with them whenever we can to see if we can help some families out. So I don't know if you have any questions, Jenny. Probably have to answer them.
I'd say congratulations. That's pretty awesome.
Thanks.
So Josh, would you be the point person on that program? Because you did put your contact info in the chat for everybody.
Yeah, that's fine. And I can get people any of the resources or questions that they may have.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks for doing that, you guys. Awesome.
Thanks, Josh. Nice job there, presenting all of that wonderful, good stuff. Great stuff.
No-
And
another
love the
question, if I may?
infographic. Oh,
I-
yes, John, go
I
ahead.
gotta change my hand again. Wonderful. I mean, I remember reading about this grant program, and I think it's fantastic. The fact that there were over 120 homeless students LBJ-USD is, I think, shocking for most people. Would these families also be eligible for the units at Eden Housing? I know that there are a certain number of units that are allocated for people that are experiencing homelessness. So would Eden Housing be able to provide for these as well, these families?
So there is kind of a gap between there. There are some units with Eden, like as far as immigration status, there is no bearing on that as far as the Leahy Square units go. That is a little bit different with Eden Housing. There is, and we're still kind of trying to figure out different levels of who will qualify for the housing at Leahy Square. Part of it may be youth that are, they may be seniors, but they're unaccompanied homeless youth. They may be 18 years old. They don't necessarily qualify for Eden Housing, but they may qualify for a 1-bedroom unit at Leahy. There are families that are living in motels that have been there longer than 6 months. With that, they no longer qualify for Eden Housing. They were still working on it, but there's a good possibility that they will qualify for Leahy Square. There's just a lot of different factors. So some of them will qualify, but not all. And we are currently up to 140 students in the school district. That there is a difference between McKinney-Vento, which is what the school district and education department classifies for homeless youth. And then there is HUD homeless. The definition's a little bit different. The definition for McKinney-Vento is broader. So the number is a little bit larger than what often gets seen in the count when we do the point in time count, because it considers families that, we have a lot of families that are in shared housing, meaning there may be 4 different families living in a 2-bedroom apartment. There may be a family living in a living room and another family of 5 living in one of the bedrooms. That does not get classified the same as far as HUD counts go as it does for McKinney-Vento.
Yeah, I think I think what it does, this grant gives us a lot more flexibility than some of the other grants that we receive. So like Jenny said, like HUD has a very specific definition of homeless, whereas McKinney-Vento is a little bit broader. So what we're trying to do, and Jenny, correct me if I'm wrong, but we're trying to look at the families that may not fit into Eden Housing or some of the other traditional housing units with the specific requirements that they may or may not meet. And so we can tailor it to targeting those families that don't fit in that mold. And so it gives us that flexibility.
Well, it comes down to something I've said many, many times, is that there is no silver bullet to cure homelessness. So we've got these little strategies that I prefer to call silver buckshot, that you have targeted small strategies that there's not one, but the silver buckshot is what is why our numbers are dropping. So great work. Thank you all so much.
So I think we have final comment from Mayor Warner, and then we got to get to Dr. Foster.
I think the short answer to John's question is, that we heard is yes, some of the families would qualify for the new project. And that's why it's, in my mind, so reprehensible, the efforts to stop it.
Yeah. For the ones at Leahy, also, the families will be given case management, but it's going to be a program that stays with them for 5 years so that they can make it to the next level. And it will be very intensive case management, which is a little bit of a larger step than with Eden Housing. So, the ability for them to move forward and not fall back into housing is even greater. Be a lot more sustainable.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Josh and Jenny. You're gonna put your contact information in the chat, Jenny. More than welcome to do that. Okay, let's move on here. So Dr. Presser, are you ready?
I am ready. Good morning, everyone.
Okay, thank you.
Pleasure. Appreciate the invitation to be a part of this important conversation. So thank you to Sharon and Don. I'm joined by Mr. Owen Letcher, who's our Vice Chancellor of Facilities, Bond Program, and Operations from our Chabot Las Positas Community College District. So I'll provide a brief overview and I'll turn it over to Owen to provide a little bit more details. At LPC, we conducted a student survey in 2019 to assess the housing needs for our students, and it was clear that housing insecurity played a major role in impacting student persistence, retention, and student success. And as we all know, it's common for four-year colleges and universities in California to provide student housing or residence halls. Student housing is not common for community colleges. Of the 116 community colleges in our system, only 12 currently provide some type of on-campus housing. Within our student population of over 7,000 students that we serve each semester, we do serve a significant number of older student veterans. We serve international students. We serve students with children and families. So with the high cost of housing and apartment rentals, as we all know in our community, it certainly is a concern. In addition, we serve a significant number of students that commute to LPC from outside of our local service area as well. And the majority of our students work so that they're able to afford housing and other living expenses, which means they attend part-time, which extends their time to completion. And some, because of the length of time, don't complete. So of course, for all those reasons, affordability is a significant concern. And we are committed to finding a viable solution for our students. One of the major barriers, as you know, is securing the funds to build housing for our college. And there are some other barriers to that that certainly will require collaboration and support from our community. And I would like to acknowledge and thank Mayor Warner and the city for engaging in conversations with us as we look to continue to explore possible opportunities to address this need within our community. The Senate recently passed a bill 169 in which the state has appropriated significant dollars this year and over the next few years for colleges and universities to be able to provide affordable, low-cost housing options for students in California. And I'm pleased to say with Vice Chancellor's leadership that our college and district will be taking advantage of this opportunity as our district has recently received a grant to conduct a student housing feasibility study. So at this time, I'd like to invite Vice Chancellor Owen Letcher to provide a little bit more details.
Thanks, Dr. Foster. I'm going to share a screen and hopefully everything works out correctly. But so as Dr. Foster mentioned, I'm Owen Letcher, Vice Chancellor of Facilities, Bond Program, and Operations. For those who don't know, that's everything building and everything stuff. Right? We have people who do finance, we have people who do humans, I do stuff. So, so with that, Dr. Foster talked about the objectives of our last study and the study we're launching this month or next month. And so, that's what it is. The results of our survey from 2019 were that we identified a potential housing program that identified between 430 and 540 full-time students that are our traditional student population that needed or would take advantage of housing out of our student population. We also identified a demand for family housing or students with dependent housing, whether that dependent be a spouse or a partner or something. We identified that as an additional 133 units that we would need for that. In looking at our population, that was students who are taking 6 or more credits. In 2019, we didn't have the requirements of what is now known as SB 169, which Dr. Foster referenced, and I'll touch on a little bit later. But those are our original numbers. At Las Positas College, we looked at our housing program, and based on proximity to services and availability of on-campus food or off-campus food. At the time, we looked at apartment style residential offerings for students and tried to right size our demand, right? How big a project should we build and what should that project look like? And then ended up at some floor plans you can see on the screen there, kind of ideas or options for students were presented to students. Would they want to live by themselves in a single unit? Would they want to share a 1-bedroom apartment or maybe share 4 students in a 2-bedroom apartment? And we asked that question of all of our students and got their replies. We looked at what offerings we would have. At the time we didn't know of a funding source, so we looked at college funded projects as well as what are referred to as public-private partnerships or a P3 funded model, and what would the rent cost be per bed. And in 2019, on the screen there, you can see what our rent values were assumed to be, around $1,400 a bed, which we think is below market rate, but maybe not meeting the definition of quote unquote affordable housing for a student, right? And then again, our rate comparison, where we would have to be. This SB 169, which is called the Higher Education Student Housing Grant Program, does 2 things. It funded housing studies for colleges and universities, and it funded construction. It will fund construction of housing for students. There have been 12 awards for construction of housing for districts who were further along than we were, who had a plan, who had floor plans, who had an environmental report completed. And so those 12 colleges are now in their design process. We are anticipating submittal in July of 2023 for our construction grant, assuming we can get all the pieces done. But some of the eligibility requirements for living in student housing that is funded by SB 169 is low-income students, so those who receive a Pell Grant, a Cal Grant, a California Dream Act, or the California Community College fee waiver. They receive those grants, they're eligible to move in. They're full-time students, they're taking at least 12 academic semester units and continuing to teach those. We would not be required to set it up as a semester housing. We would be allowed to offer them a year-long housing contract and not have move out in the summer and move back in the fall. So that is a benefit for the community college side. Our eligible rents, 30% to 50% of the 2021 median income in Alameda County. Those of you who are familiar with that can do the math. It was $999,000 or $99,950 in 2021, and the math comes out to about $1,250. And so we received a planning grant for Las Positas College and Chabot College. We've combined the services and we're studying both campuses again at the same time. And again, as I mentioned, we're looking for July of 2023 to make our submittal. But really, as a summary, as Dr. Foster mentioned, it's an opportunity to serve students who are single students and students with families on our campuses. We have to look at the cost of construction. If we are offering it, it has to be built to the California Field Act standards, which is California Building Code times 1.25% or 1.3%, as would all of our buildings, all of our school buildings are required to be built. So we've looked at options, and that's kind of where we're at. We will launch this following our November board meeting with our consultants and look to achieve our final plan by June for presentation to the board, to then follow up with submittal to the state for our construction grant, which would be, again, a competitive grant at that point. So our recommendations from 2019 weren't sure we were quite ready, hadn't identified a funding source, but consider it as apartment style living, consider reserving our students. And now after the pandemic and after a slight change of an economy between 2019 and 2020, two, we probably need to evaluate that. And then determining our site capacity, and that's kind of our next step, is where on campus or where in the community can we build housing. And that's again, thanks to Mayor Warner and the city staff for engaging in that conversation with us about where we would locate housing and what might be available to us. So with that, I'm going to stop because I know we're running short of time.
Great. Great presentation, Dr. Foster and Vice Chancellor Letcher. Lots in there, and in a nice time frame. But you got nice elevator. Good job there. Good elevator pitch. Any questions?
I have a question. This is very exciting. This is awesome. So the chamber looks forward to, tracking this and on your progress and supporting the college as it moves forward with its grant application. But you had some slides up there with a lot of data on it. So what is your estimate on the number of housing units that you think that you're going to shoot for on your grant application, Vice Chancellor?
Yeah, so that's the challenge. We're still doing the study on how many of our students qualify. We're considering housing in a phased approach, right? What can we do with SB 169 money? What can we do with a partner or other funding sources? And how can we build out to this total demand need? My initial response would be, we're probably looking for in the neighborhood of 190 to 250 beds in phase one, and then continuing to build out as we move forward.
Mayor Warner has his hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that, I mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, the college is going to come to the city council on the 28th meeting of this month, and encourage everyone to participate and support the path forward that they might propose. So thank you.
Okay. So maybe Dr. Foster, your contact information, or I don't know, a link or something like that, so that people have more questions or they can follow up in the chat would be great.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Lots of information. Dawn, great time of the year, great presentations. I love the speakers. This is just perfect. So nice job on presenting the presenters today at the Business Alliance meeting. Okay, does anybody have anything else they'd like to say here before we sign off? Go ahead, Dawn.
And the recording should be ready hopefully by the end of the week, and it'll be posted on our website.
Yeah, great slides. Really good data too. So thank you, Dawn, for that. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and sign off. Our next meeting is Wednesday, December 7th. Please